We are Decatur FM. Any and everything going on in this neighborhood, we're talking about it. Even anything and everything going on outside of the neighborhood, we talk about it too. And this is a part of the show that we all know and love, right? We always feature either Decatur residents or our neighbors just right outside of Decatur because they come to Decatur and we go see them, right? And we just talk and we meet and we get to know more about them and what they do and what they're all about. And this amazing person is an individual that I met, like I said, at the beginning of the summer. I'm a big runner. And I decided after my last marathon that I was all torn, bent out of shape. So I said, you know what, maybe I need to get a little bendy. Maybe I need to stretch a little bit. So I ended up looking up spots, and I heard a lot about this one spot called Tough Love Yoga. I said, you know what, I'm going to go for about a week or 2 weeks, get my joints right, and then get back on the road. So I get there. I take a class called Yoga Hour, and it's taught by this gal named Neda. So I was like, all right, cool, I'll check it out. We go in there. I work up a sweat. I thought it was just like, I'll do a couple stretches. I'll be all right. But then, so then things started happening to my body, right? And then the more I got into the practice, they'd start off every day with a word of the day. The more I started getting into the practice, the more I started seeing kind of things change. Just me being a little bit more centered, my body changing, not, rolling as much on the roller maybe. Now I am, but not rolling as much on the roller. And it was awesome. So I was like, I have to have her on. So I want, we welcomed her to the show, but I want you guys to get an experience of what it's like to start off this practice as we start off this interview. We generally do a word of the day on the show, but I decided to hold back and have Neda do the word of the day today.
Thank you.
Right? But it's in the form of how we normally start our practice so everybody can experience it both in here and our neighbors in Decatur. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go. You got it, girl. Go.
All right. Here's my best shot on the fly.
Go for it.
Welcome to Decatur FM. My name is Neda, and the word of the day is connection. So the word yoga, in case you're unfamiliar, comes from the root word yuj, which means to yoke or union. And so much of the practice, all the teachings of the practice talk about this idea of uniting either the heart and the mind, or the small self with the higher self. I think that that's one of the main reasons that I step into this practice on a daily basis, is that there's so many things in the world that try to pull me away from myself. I wake up and I listen to news podcasts first thing in the morning, and it's really easy for me to get kind of like wrapped up in the crazy of the hurricane of chaos around me. And I need this practice on a daily basis just to function and remind myself that like there is a higher purpose in my life. There's a part of myself that is bigger than all of that, that if I can just connect into even for a split second every day, I'm going to be a better person for that day. I'm going to be better for myself and in my relationships. And luckily it is my work, but it helps me be better in my work. And beyond that, we get to have the studio where, hundreds of people get to come every week and connect with one another, and in a way that they may not connect with people otherwise. I feel like just the world is so polarized right now, and we have all these systems around us keeping us from connecting with one another. So thank you for inviting me to come connect in with you guys today.
Absolutely.
And inviting me into your space, and
absolutely
happy to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So,
yep.
As a way of stepping into our interview,
mm-hmm.
our show tonight,
yep.
We'll start with the sound of Om. And I won't be able to hear the rest of you, but you are always welcome to join in or join in by listening. Please place your palms together. Rest your thumbs against your sternum. With an inhale, lift your chest, please. And with an exhale, close your eyes. Bring your awareness inside. And surrender the weight of your pelvis down into your seat. Remember, it's optional, so join in or listen. Inhale fully, please.
Boom. There it is. And that's how you do it. And seriously, guys, that is exactly how we start off every practice every day. It's really refreshing to start it off. And then after that, you get your butt handed to you.
That's true.
Right? Welcome again to
Thank you
Decatur
very
FM.
much.
Thank you so much for coming in here. So tell me a little bit about you right? Where you're from, and how you chose what I'm still a tadpole in this arena, right? But how you chose to be so interwoven to such a great sport situation. I don't know what I call it, a union with whatever. Like, how'd you get into it?
Okay, so I'm from Atlanta. I was born and raised here, and experienced a lot of anxiety as a teenager, and a little bit of depression as well. And how honest can I be about things here?
No. Get as low down.
So when I was 18 years old, I was smoking a lot of weed to deal with my anxiety and stuff, and went to a yoga class. Actually, I went to the yoga class because I was working out at a gym, and I was on a stationary bike, and I was just feeling miserable, just like sweating and hunched over it and just hating it. And I looked over next to me, and there was this woman, and she was like glowy and happy and everything. And I was like, I want what she has. And she was the yoga teacher. So I took her class, and I walked out of that class, and I was like, I feel just as high as if I had just smoked some weed. And it like kept me coming back. So, and it helped me just like feel at home. Like I really like felt connected to myself in a way that I had never felt before. And I really felt at home inside myself. And I remember just like getting in my car. I remember the song that was playing on the radio and just the feeling that I had. And I was like, all right, I'm going back. And that was 18 years ago. And
very lucid situation that was going on.
I'll never forget that moment. And I don't remember the class at all. I didn't even remember the teacher's name. I mean, nothing. But I just remember what it felt like afterwards. So I kept going. And I was kind of a party girl in my early 20s. I worked at MJQ. I was like, up till 7 a.m. all the time.
Nights,
yeah. Bartending till we closed at 4. We cleaned up till 6, this kind of thing. And so I kind of practiced on and off, and then I got to the point where I was practicing a lot, and I had some friends who had taken a yoga teacher training together, and they all said it changed their life. And I had just been kind of in the party scene for a long time, and I did that all through college, and was kind of burnt out on college. I was like on a med school path. I'd already like graduated and was doing some post-bac stuff, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do a yoga teacher training. And so that was a little over 10 years ago, and it's been like a part of my daily life since.
Yeah, but so you get out of this yoga class the very first time you take it, right?
Yeah.
And it's very much like anything else that we've done, like as far as exercise, like all the endorphins rush in, so it's that really good feeling that you get, right? That's part of it, that high that you get, right?
For sure.
I mean, I call it the same when I go on a long run. You get the runner's high.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure everybody's experienced that. But watching you guys, you and all the instructors there, I mean, you've turned this into more so a lifestyle,
for sure,
a discipline, okay? And that's one of the things that I think and I find fascinating about these practices. I mean, it's just like anything else. Yeah, an athlete is disciplined, but this is a different kind of discipline because it encompasses not only the physical portion, right?
Absolutely.
But you refer back to, and a lot of people have referred go to the studio, a lot of people have referred to things going on in your life. It gets reflected on the mat, right? So what I'm asking is, what made you go from, wow, this class is great and I feel this yogi high, to like, this is my new discipline and this is how I'm going to attack it, because whatever it seems to be that's going on in my life, it's reflected here and I can kind of make some kind of sense out of it. What point did that happen?
That's a really good question, and that point was taking my first teacher training. That like I was practicing a lot, and I just knew that I wasn't really happy with the state of my life and what I was doing, and decided, that changed their lives, maybe it'll change mine. And I really wasn't expecting it to change. I mean, my life burnt to the ground that year it was excruciating, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Right. But really what changed it was I met my teacher. Her name is Majaya Sati Bhagavati. Mm-hmm. She passed away in April 2012, but she was a very radical human being, and I met her, and it just cracked my heart open, and I was like all of a sudden very aware of all of my darkness, and at the same time like very aware that like there was a path out, and aware that like I had a capacity to love myself for the first time, and a capacity just to like transform if I wanted it, but I just had to do the work. And so that's where the discipline came in, was like, okay, this is something I'm doing every day for the rest of my life. Like the thing that you do with me, like when you come in and you do yoga hour and we have a word of the day and we move our bodies, like that is like a daily discipline for me, but it's like such a small fraction of what yoga is for me.
What do you mean?
I mean, like, I think when people hear the word yoga, they think about like getting in stretchy pants and getting on a mat and moving their bodies.
Lulu's all day, baby.
Yeah, right. So, but it's, if you look at the path of yoga, I mean, yoga started, the first time yoga was in a text was 5,000 years ago in the Vedas. Yeah. And the way that they talked about yoga was about like reining in. The first mention of yoga talks about like yoking an ox. Sure. And then they talk about like reining in a wild horse, that like that's what these practices are. So the breath work that we do, meditation, like ritual, all of that stuff is a means of like reining in the wild horse that is the mind. Right. And learning how to not let, so the way my teacher would say it is like, instead of letting it consume you, you learn how to consume it. So
it's funny, man. Like, but the only reason I'm cutting you off is because what's so creepy is like, we have been talking to like some really amazing people, both, that live in Decatur and neighbors, and everybody says the same thing about this whole mind thing, like reining it in, monkey in the cage, call it what you want. Mm-hmm. But it's crazy how like all this stuff kind of fits together.
I think it's a really, it's something everybody experiences. It's like, at some point, everybody probably gets wrapped up in thought. I mean, that's what thoughts do, right. And so all of these various practices of yoga, which the physical practice is just part of it, they all offer different tools. And I think the physical part is an access point for most people. Like, most people go to yoga, yeah, quote unquote yoga, right? And start the physical practice first, sure. And then they like slowly get drawn into the rest of it. And it is like the physical practice, because it's such like a gross practice, like it's like physically being in our bodies, it's more accessible than like asking somebody to come sit down and meditate for an hour. Right. That's just not going to happen. Right. I always think about, I teach private sessions here and there, and I had an NFL player who wanted to do yoga, and he kind of came in like very like too cool for school, right. And didn't want to look me in the eye, and he was very guarded, and I'm sure he probably gets harassed all the time, and that's probably why. And I just, he came with his girlfriend, and we practiced for a little bit, and he went from like being very, very closed off and guarded to like sitting on the edge of our puja, which you've seen at Tough Love. Yeah. So puja, for those of you who are unfamiliar with that term, it's an altar, and we have a massive one at Tough Love, covered in devotional pieces of art and stuff. And he was sitting on the end of it by the end of our session, like asking me about my teacher, and asking me about what all the things meant. And so, I think that like the physical practice is an access point. It definitely was the access point for me. I was like, oh, I can do this thing with my body that is self-contained. I was like very competitive growing up, so I couldn't do team sports really. Like I'd like foul out in basketball. So I ran track, and then I found yoga and was like, oh, this isn't about competition. This is good for me. And so that physical access point kind of gave me an entryway into the other practices. And the other practices are really what keeps me in it, I think.
Okay, so, you didn't do well in the other sports. You find some kind of safe haven here, right? But here's my question as far as being competitive, right? Mm-hmm. And it goes back to what you just said about, the controlling the mind, not letting the mind control you. I'm paraphrasing here. But at what point does... Because it happens to me, and I'm pretty sure it happens to you, but I'd love to hear your take on it. Ego.
Yes.
Takes a big, big part when you're on that mat.
Yes.
Couple of reasons. You look around. You're teaching, right? I want to do what you're doing. I can't, right? Obviously. Yes, correct. Sorry, yet. I can't yet. But I want to. And my brain says, I could do that. At what point does ego exit? Or at what point can you check your ego to say, maybe I just need to stay here versus doing that?
I think it's really different for everybody.
I mean, is it a point where, like, because some people I'm pretty sure will experience injury and say, maybe I shouldn't have did that?
Yeah, I think injury has been a good killer for me, ego killer for me.
Right.
I got really, really sick 5 years ago, couldn't eat any solid food, was surviving on bone broth for months, and that was a huge ego killer. Right. Not just because I couldn't practice because I was so physically ill, but I had prided myself on my my fire, really, my ability to just power through things and make things happen, and I just burnt out completely at that point. That was a big ego killer. And beyond that, I just had a teacher who was a massive ego slayer. So you see in our studio, we have that giant statue in the corner.
Yep.
Kali.
Yep.
She's the mother of transformation.
Yes.
And in the Vedic tradition, she is the slayer of the ego.
Right.
And so I really kind of come from a lineage of teachers that kind of go after that in a way, in a kind, compassionate, loving way.
Right.
And so I was I don't think I'll ever be rid of my ego. I don't think that anybody
It's a hard
really.
thing.
It gets trickier and more skillful in its way.
It figures it
as
out.
It goes.
Yeah, it figures it out.
I think that's part of the daily discipline. That's also part of what keeps me coming back to the practice.
Right.
Is that when I'm not practicing, all of that stuff starts to come back. Like all of my kind of dark kind of starts to take over again. So it makes me a better person when I'm practicing.
Right.
I'm better with myself. I'm better with my husband.
Yeah.
I'm just a better daughter. All of those things when I'm engaged with my practice, because the practice itself for me is an ego slayer.
So you do this teacher training.
Yes.
Right? You start teaching.
Mm-hmm.
How did tough love develop?
Also, good question. So I started teaching at the studio that I did my first teacher training at, and it was really great, and I learned so much, and I will always, always hold my teachers there and that studio in high regard, because it opened a huge door for me. But the classes I was teaching, nobody was coming to my class. Like, I'd be lucky if one person showed up, and there'd be weeks at a time where nobody would show up. And I would sub other people's classes all the time, and it was great, but I kind of got to the point where I wanted to do my own thing. And I had a very close girlfriend she was actually born on my guru's ashram, and we really connected on a lot of things and both wanted to kind of give it a go. So we had a year before been with our teacher, and we had a special experience with her that kind of, that experience is like where the name for our studio comes from. It's where our logo comes from. It's kind of an interesting story, but we decided to do it. So we were like, okay, this thing working at the studio isn't quite working the way that we had hoped. What if we start something different? So, like I said, I'd worked at MJQ. I've worked in so many different bars in Atlanta, and I knew a bunch of people, especially just because I was born here. I grew up here. So I was like, okay, let's find neutral spaces. Let's find some spaces that aren't yoga studios, that maybe won't be intimidating for people, that they're more likely to come into and offer some classes and see what happens. So two of my girlfriends, Maggie White and Kelly, they owned this gallery called Youngblood, Kelly Teasley. They had this
in Highland.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
So it's a boutique now,
Oh,
but it used to be an art gallery also.
Yeah.
So it was like very like DIY space, and they did all these shows and parties. It was so fun, and I didn't really know them well. I just gone to some art shows there, and I like went to the restaurant next door with my boyfriend and had a couple of glasses of wine for liquid courage, and then went over there and was like, "Can I teach a yoga class in your space?"
Right.
And it was almost like before I could even get the words out, they said yes, and just said they didn't even charge me rent. They just said, "Let us come to class for free." So we started April 2010. I started with 3 morning classes a week, and it was still that kind of same thing where it's like I was lucky if somebody came, I'd have like $10 to eat lunch.
Right.
Because this is when the economy was really bad, and
Right.
I had lost my bar job, and I was not going back to the bar. I refused.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just done with that, because it was definitely like being up late and teaching yoga. They just don't
mix.
They just don't mix.
No.
So I was really stubborn. I couldn't get an office job. The economy was awful, and so I was like, all right, I'm going to try this studio thing. And the studio thing really came to form because a friend of mine, she used to be one of the higher-ups at Coca-Cola, and she was helping me write all my resumes and cover letters, and I couldn't get a job, and I was at her house crying on her dining room table, and she said, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do? And I said,
Sounds like a familiar conversation.
right?
Yeah.
So I said, well, I'd open a yoga studio, and she said, well, that's what you need to do. And I had a million reasons why I didn't think it would work out, and she just really gave me the push, and so we did it. And I started teaching at the gallery. My friend started teaching at a coffee shop, which is now Church, the bar on Edgewood.
Yeah.
And about 6 months in, I was asking some of my guy friends, what would it take to get you guys to come to class? And they said, if you play metal, we'll come. So I was like, all right, metal yoga.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So we started doing metal yoga. There was 12 people, I think, at the first class, which was our biggest class to date.
Yeah.
And it just kind of exploded from there. And we were at the gallery for about 2.5 years before we moved into what we call Cobraville, which is our new studio.
Uh-huh.
And if you had asked me 10 years ago when I took my teacher training if what is happening now would be happening, I would have never guessed it. I just wanted to teach some yoga. I just wanted to
That's
share.
crazy.
So it's really grown, and it's grown mainly because of connection, because students came, other teachers came, everybody worked together and built this beautiful thing, and it doesn't run just on me. I mean, my sister manages the studio. All of our teachers show up day after day and teach. We don't have a studio if our students don't show up.
Yeah.
So really, like, we have our students to thank for showing up, our teachers for showing up over and over again, and just grace.
I'll tell you, and it's a great bunch of people that you have over there.
Thank you.
I think one of the cool things when you do go there, speaking of metal yoga, I've been a couple times, and man, I'll tell you, go on the wrong day, buddy. It's
brutal.
It's brutal, and it's and on top of that, it's like mad packed, and the energy is like crazy. Like, the energy is really, really good. Like, and I love it when you get to the point where people are just piling in and people are just moving over mats, and they started. It's just an amazing type of vibe. But when you ask some of your male friends, to come, right? Because that was one of my questions was, a lot of people need stuff like this, right? But it's just like, the athlete like myself or whoever else, Gazelle over here or Gerard behind you is like, no, not for me. It's a little foo-foo until you do it, and it's different. So, like, how do you change a person's train of thought? Because I feel like sometimes some people really do need to experience this.
Yeah, I mean, that's really why we started Tough Love. Is like, the studio I was teaching at is an urban ashram, so it's a spiritual community, and it's a beautiful space, and it's intimidating for a lot of people. So, like, my husband is like the #1 atheist in the world. Like, he is like so hardcore atheist. Like, there's no way I was gonna get. I mean, I didn't even know him. Right. When I was doing my first yoga teacher training. I met him the same year, though. Yeah. But yeah, there was no way he was going to set foot in there, So it's like, it's a beautiful space, and just like Tough Love isn't for everybody, that wasn't for everybody. Right. And so the idea was like, how can we find like a neutral space? Like, the art gallery's pretty low, low pressure. The floors were all jacked up. There's like a 3-legged cat walking around while we were teaching, biting people's heads in shavasana. Right. Like, it was just very like, it was kitschy and weird. And because we did metal yoga, people were like, oh, what's that weird thing? Let's go see what it's about. Right. And so I think that was a point of access for a lot of people, especially men, that we had a lot of men coming from the beginning, I think because we played metal. Right. And then beyond that, like, obviously, I've said the word guru. I was talking to you before we went on air about, like, you asked me about Draupadi, what that is. It's like, oh, it's my spiritual name. Like, obviously, it's my spiritual discipline. I'm like, have very deep roots in that. And also, like, that's not how we approached the studio. Like, the studio atmosphere, the idea is how do we make this accessible? How do we make this something that anybody can walk in and have a good experience and not feel like we're trying to shove something down their throats? Right. Just like, create a space, hold space, hopefully people come. And honestly, most of the people that come to the studio, it's word of mouth. Like, we don't advertise, and we just hope that the right people come in. And for me, it's not really about having the biggest studio. I think at some point I felt like I should open more, and I'm so grateful that I did not, because then I started traveling, and I was like, oh, I can only do one, But I think our thing is, the way that it's worked has been organic, and it's been really good that way. It's just like, I feel like the feedback I get about Tough Love is that it's not too foo-foo, like you said.
It isn't.
Even though there's a massive puja, and even though we and whatever.
Listen, I've been to studios before where you have people that are really hardcore into yoga, and I don't have a problem with that, right? Yeah. But for the beginner, it makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Sure. So I think one of the things that I loved was when I walked in there, and it's like everybody's all tatted up and nobody really, you know what I mean? And then every now and then there's a curse word that comes out, but it's very well needed because of that pose that you're in, that you just want to say it. So I think that's great. And real quick, just to rewind, when we were talking off air, Draupadi is I thought it was her maiden name, but you said it was your spiritual name. So,
yes.
She uses it in the middle like you would use if it was your maiden name. So guru, right?
Uh-huh.
What is a guru?
Okay, so the word guru literally means dark light.
Okay.
And another translation is dispeller of darkness and shiner of light. So the idea of the guru principle is that the guru principle lives within. So part of the idea is that to, like, find the inner teacher that would, like, dispel darkness and shine light in the dark. And also there are people who serve as that for people. And
so it could be a person.
it can be a person. For me, it definitely was a person.
Okay.
And I feel like, so I met Ma, her name is Ma, my teacher, and I met her and she died 4 years to the day after that day I met her. Wow. And I know it was only 4 years, but I feel like I feel like I've known her my whole life. And so much happened in that 4 years, and I was always kind of like looking to her for guidance. And the whole time, all she was ever saying was like, you have to find it in you. And so that's really the job of the guru in a lot of ways, is to be a mirror, to like reflect yourself back in a way. So, you know, when I said I met Ma and like my whole life burned to the ground, and like all of a sudden saw all of my darkness and all of my light, it was like, it really felt like my entire chest cracked open. That is really in my experience, the job of the guru is to like mirror back your potential and like the flip side, like there's no light without dark. And so like a lot of these practices for me are about engaging with that and really like having compassion for myself, because I beat myself up all day, every day, you know? And so, and when I think about what it's like now, I'm like, oh, and it's so much better than it was when I started on this path. So I feel like, you know, Ma, when I met her, the day that I met her and talked to her for the first time, I had never experienced so much love in such a short amount of time. And I was like, I felt like I was coming home for the first time. Like, I remember asking her a question and her talking to me, and I burst into tears, and she like wrapped me up. And Ma was covered in tattoos, and she had this like loud Brooklyn accent. She was covered in gold jewelry, and she's very wild and just like extra in the best way possible. And it just, to see somebody who was like so she just loved herself, and to like to see somebody like that who embodies that, and like she didn't look like what I thought a guru would look like. Like she looked like Ma. So it made me comfortable, and it made me feel okay in my skin in a way, and like held and seen really for the first time in my life. Like I'd never felt like anybody saw my essence more than Ma did.
Has that translated to you? Are you someone's guru?
No.
Not yet?
No, never.
Why?
I won't be ever.
Why?
It's just not me. I'm just not that. I mean, I'm a teacher. I like to teach.
How do you know if life chooses that for you?
I just don't think that's my path.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So if some kid comes to you and just sees the aura around you, not to disrespect your husband, but the halo, the Jesus piece halo around you, that you are the guru, you're going to tell him no?
I mean, I'm just not that. That's just not who I am. I'm not.
That's crazy.
What Ma was, and what some of these people. So, and there's also a bunch of charlatans saying that they're gurus too in the world. There just was a guru last week that I heard about, this giant sexual scandal and all these people he hurt. Like those kinds of things happen all the time too. Like there's listen, you go into any community. There's going to be a fanatic person, and there's going to be a chill person, and then there's going to be everyone in between. Yeah. And if you take like 20 gurus in a room, there's going to be a fanatic person, there's going to be a charlatan, there's going to be like a real true down home guru, and then there's going to be everything in between. And I think what happens is that, unfortunately, like when I think about what Ma had, that a typical person that I meet, like what makes her different is like I feel like she had access to Shakti, which is a word, it's a Sanskrit word. It basically means like energy, transformational energy, feminine energy. That she had access to that in a way that not a lot of people.
She had the juice.
She did. She had the juice. She did. And so it's just like, if you get access to that kind of power, you can use it for good, or you can use it to abuse your power, you know, to control people.
Absolutely.
And so,
well, that sounds more like a cult.
Well, exactly. Yeah. No, but I mean, this is. I mean,
when you describe that, I'm sure that's actually a cult.
I mean, seriously. No. But anybody in that kind of power, that's what it ends up being called. And actually, you know, when I met Ma, I broke up with my boyfriend of 4 years. Yeah. And he was a wonderful human being. I still think he's wonderful. And he also like told a bunch of people that I joined a cult and like called my parents. And I remember sitting down and talking with my mom about it. And I was like, am I giving anybody my money? No. Am I hurting people? Yeah. No. Is our relationship better? Yes. Am I a better person? Yes. Like everything has gotten better. The only thing that's shifted is like I found this woman who's a teacher, and she's teaching me how to work with myself in a way that is really helping me and helping my relationships. So you can call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it a call. You can call it,
No. I was
not
just saying,
you.
yeah,
But I was just saying, like, to her, like, I was
Sure.
like, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But ultimately, like, I'm on a path of transformation that is helping me grow. And my mom and I were at each other's throats when I was a teenager, and now we actually have a relationship. And so, and it is because of Ma. Like, Ma helped me heal that. And so, you know, a lot of people have a lot of ideas about it, and what I always come back to is like, it helped me so much, and it still continues to help me. I mean, I just came back from her ashram. I was there last week, and
What's an ashram?
an ashram. Thank you. An ashram is a spiritual community.
Okay.
So it's usually like a community around a certain purpose. And Ma's particular ashram is interfaith. Like she'd say, whatever your faith is or no faith, our religion is kindness here.
Yeah.
And that is really what it's about. So it's 80 acres of land on the Sebastian River in Florida. There it's covered in temples, and temples, not just like Hindu temples. Like there's a Mother Mary standing by the major pond. There's a Jesus garden. There's a Buddha garden. There's like the 10 Commandments sitting out there. There's a Native American medicine wheel. Like there's all these different faiths represented.
Yeah.
And
pick your poison. Just come on down.
Yeah. And so, you know, there are people out there who abuse that power.
Yeah.
And
but it's not.
That
for
was
you.
not my experience.
Not your thing.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just not that. I'm like, you know.
No, I got
I'm a hot mess.
No, I know. I mean, the only reason I say that is because, you know, sometimes people have callings, and maybe it went from her to you to, you know, maybe you pass it on to somebody else. I mean, I like
to share the teachings that she shared with me, but I'm in no way, shape, or form a guru or ever will be. I am a yoga teacher, and more than that, I'm a yoga practitioner. Like I'm more into the practice, and like for me, the teachings that Ma shared with me and the practice that I have has changed my life so much. That's why I started teaching yoga. I was like, I want to be able to offer this to other people because it changed my life so much.
I love the community that you've built. It's great because one thing I think, you know, I look at it as in three buckets, right? There's the people that attend, and that's a personality by itself, right? The beginners, the ones that have been doing it and with you for a while, and there's a whole bunch. It's a big jambalaya of muck in there. That's great.
Yeah.
It's great tasting muck, but that's one bucket. Then we have
a very diverse
community.
They
do, right? So then there's the instructors, right? And that's just a personality by themselves. And each instructor obviously is different. You have the fun ones. I mean, they're all fun, but you have the fun ones. You have the ones that really get you to really just hone down and just bust your butt. You have the ones that want you to have some fun and be playful with it. I mean, it's just a great rounding of people that take us into this particular practice. Then there's the space. And I look at the space as a personality all by itself, right?
It definitely does have a personality.
It does. And the reason why I think that it has its personality is because obviously we come there. It's a place that we want to practice, and then, you know, you look at the altars, and then you look at the artwork, and the artwork is amazing because you have these cobras, right? Hence the word Cobraville that we've been using. Why the cobra?
It's a great question. So the cobra, part of the image of the cobra is the idea of shedding skin. So the idea is that, like, just like a snake sheds its skin, through these practices, I have access to tools that help me kind of shed layers of myself until I get to kind of what's laying underneath all the BS. So, like, I think about patterns that I have that are not helpful. Like, just like general, everybody, you know, to be efficient, our brains put us in pattern on purpose, right? So, like, we all have patterns of behavior that, for better or worse, they're there, and some of them are not as helpful than others. And there's thought patterns that I have, there's behavior patterns that I have, there's like ways that I eat, things that I do with my body, you know, just like even the way I sleep, right? So the idea is that, like, through all of the practices, to learn how to kind of break the pattern in a way and shed that a little bit. And the other thing you see around our studio all the time are skulls. Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah. The idea is that, like, you do the practices to a point where they start to stoke the internal fire of transformation, And the skull, the piece, is about like burning away everything until all that's left is the essence. Like all that's left is the bone. So the idea is that like through the fire of yoga, whether I'm doing meditation practices or ritual or doing the physical practice, which is like a very like physical feeling of the heat of practice, or the breath work, whatever it is, the idea is to like stoke that power of transformation so that I burn away. I mean, this is my personal goal.
Sure.
It's like to burn away all of that until all I see is my essence,
Right.
which I all the time forget who I am.
Right.
And that's really the purpose of the spiritual name. That's why Ma gave us all spiritual names when she took us on, was like, it's a reminder that every time I hear somebody say Draupadi, it snaps me out of my BS and takes me into like, your name means this.
Right.
Like, that's what you need to go to. Like, that's what you need to redirect your focus to, and like, be that. Don't be this small thing that you're being right now.
So, but as you shed down to the bone, like there's so many layers that you go through, and I'm referring it back to actually the physical point of the practice, right?
Yeah.
Like you come in one day and it's like, boom, I shed the layer of skin, I figured this out, this is awesome. But then boom, here comes another roadblock, right? Here's another layer that I need to get over, right? What I try to figure out is the point to get to the bone? Like, is the bone like the end all be all? Like, once all those layers are gone, is it done? Or is there always an ongoing?
No, the point is the practice.
Okay.
I mean, you see that all the time, like how much please practice is all over everything at the studio, right?
Yeah.
So the idea, there's this idea through all of the yoga philosophy that it's like, just give yourself to the work and don't worry about the fruits of the work. That like the point of the work is the work, not what you get out of it. Like, you will get something out of it, but what I may not get what I want, but I'm definitely going to get what I need. And if I can just devote,
You think so?
I really do.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Like, if what I want is X.
I mean, I've also gotten almost everything I ever wanted.
Right.
I mean, I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. I was like, everything I ever wanted. I'm about to be 37 in January,
right.
and I'm like, everything I ever wanted, I have.
Right.
There's nothing that I want that I don't have, and really, most of what I have now, I wanted it, but it came in a different form. It came not necessarily in the exact form I wanted it in,
right.
but it came in even a better form. It was what I actually needed. And once I let go of that expectation of this is the fruit that I want, like, hey, I wanted apples, I got oranges. But actually, like, this orange situation is really rad, you know?
Right.
So that's part of it. It's like, for me, it's more about like there's not ever going to be a point where I'm like, I'm done, got it, like I've done the work, it's over, done.
Right.
I can stop practicing now. The point is the practice for me.
To keep going.
Yeah. I mean, all the texts say that. The Bhagavad Gita, I wish I had the exact quote, but there's this beautiful passage from the Bhagavad Gita that, says that basic thing. It's like, devote yourself to this work. Do it with skill and act. And don't worry about what comes from it. Don't worry about the fruit.
The physical form of the practice, I want to talk about kind of like I call it a curriculum. I'm still trying to figure out everything.
We also call it the curriculum sometimes, or like the syllabus,
the lesson plan.
Yeah, we have like a printed version of the syllabus, all the poses, and
it's called Yoga Hour.
Yoga Hour, yes.
So as a person,
that's one of the styles. That's the primary style that we offer.
That's a style of yoga.
Yes.
Right. Where does that style come from, and like, why did you choose that style to kind of be the platform of what you've built?
That's a great question, and it's super related to what we were just talking about.
Yep.
So 5 years ago when I got really sick,
mm-hmm.
Like I said, I was like laid in the bed for like 2 months. I was a hot mess, and some really bad things started happening at the studio. We had a employee that basically tried to ruin our business, and It was really, really rough. And so that was November of 2013 is kind of when it started.
Yeah.
January of 2014, we hosted a teacher named Darren Rhodes for a weekend workshop. And I had been practicing online with Darren for a few years at that point, on a website called Yoga Glow. It's yogaglo.com. And they have yoga teachers from all over teach online classes. And I'd been taking his classes, and I would just be like, God, I don't know why, but when I take his class, things that I can't normally do with my body, all of a sudden I can do.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the way that he says it, the way that he taught, all of a sudden I can do these things that I couldn't do before. And I would spend hours like sitting in front of the computer, listening to him teach, writing down the cues he would use. I would write down his sequences, and then I would teach them. And I was like trying to teach myself what he was doing. So we emailed him, invited him, and he's like, I'm teaching this thing called Yoga Hour. And I was like, you can come talk about cats all weekend. I don't care. You just come.
Right.
So he came, and I remember the very first class, I didn't know what Yoga Hour was. The second pose was plank, and it was like the hardest plank I'd ever done in my life.
Right.
Because you've taken our class. It's like, it's not just making shapes. It's like all the work inside the shape, which is so much related to this thing. It's like, it's not about getting into the pose. It's like, if I can, when I devote myself to doing the work inside the pose, my awareness becomes stronger. I become more focused. I concentrate. All of a sudden, thought stops.
Yeah.
You know, so because I'm focusing so much on like what I'm doing inside the pose, and we got through that first hour, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to take the next one because we had 2 that first night.
Right.
Made it through both classes. Darren and I came out to Decatur. We went to Brick Store and like had some beers, and then went back to the studio the next morning and did 4 hours of yoga in a row. It's called Barefoot Boot Camp, and we did, I think it was 200 poses in 4 hours.
Whoa.
And I
Gerard's back there shaking his head.
Yeah.
He's back there shaking his head.
It's brutal and amazing because I was so sick in my body. I was like 20 pounds lighter than I am now. I was like a skeleton.
Right.
And I didn't think
What's
I was
up,
going to be able to
everybody?
make
My
it.
name's
That's me. I did that. Sorry, that's my. I
All
pressed
good.
on. Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to make it, and I got out of that 4 hours of yoga feeling more powerful. Like, oh my gosh, if I can make it through that, I can make it through anything.
Yeah.
And we just loved it so much. It was such a great weekend, and we asked Darren at the end of it, like, hey, can we teach this? And so he gave us some sequences. He gave us the script for it, which there is a script for Yoga Hour.
Yeah.
So like you memorize a script when you take
I gotta
the
say,
training.
I gotta say, the script is an art form by itself. FYI,
Oh,
it
thanks.
is when you listen to it and the way that they dictate it. It's the best way I can.
So what
describe
you
it.
hear in class is like we're not actually saying the script, but we're riffing on it. So like we learn the script. So Yoga Hour has a particular language, which
Yes.
is like what I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so we all have to memorize it, and then we all learn how to make it our own. So like it's very non-rigid. Like you learn. Darren always says, learn the rules so that you can break them.
Yeah.
So we learn the script, and then we teach based on what we're seeing in the room and what we're focusing on that day. And it's not like we're just reciting a script, but. So we started doing that, started offering the classes February or March of 2014, and then that summer I took a training. And I mean, I had taken so many yoga trainings up in that point, but
Yeah.
I had never had one transform my actual teaching asana so much.
Gee, I'm telling you, listen, I'll tell both of you guys. The way that they call the practice is what I'm going to say, right? And I'm, like I said, new guy. It's like you're in a pose, right? And any of them, they're saying, okay, take your left heel and pull it towards your right. But squeeze your knees and then squeeze your elbows and then do this and push back. And you're like, whoa, hold on. I can't do all of that at the same time, right?
But what's cool is that over time
you
do.
figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you first started, it's like you're in a you're in a pose, and it's like bring your front heel and your back heel
Maybe
together.
we should teach them a pose.
I think you should. Gerard, you want to learn something? Gerard, you want to learn something?
Just
Of
like-
course.
Yeah, he wants to learn something.
Just one.
Yeah, let's choose. What pose?
We'll do one later.
We'll do a pose later.
Okay.
We got to teach him a pose. But
Okay.
it's honestly like, but when you see it and you hear it, it becomes intimidating, right? I'm trying to get over that. Like, the curriculum is what it is, and it's tough. I got to say that it is. It puts. It's not.
challenging.
Yeah, it's a challenge, which I think it
It's
should be.
doable and difficult.
Yeah,
but
it's a place where you actually need to perform it, and at the same time, they always say find some softness in what you're doing. In other words, don't clench, don't find some kind of space
Yeah,
in
it's
it.
definitely not about force.
No, not at all, right? And when you find it, it's like you have that aha moment, right? We had a friend of ours in here, a good buddy of mine who's a sports psychologist. He calls it the zone. Well, I say that's how I would like
Yeah.
once you find your zone, like it's like, oh, this is what it is versus what I was doing before, right? But with that being said, you guys in your curriculum, it's like we're doing this same kind of like sequence for the week, and then I
Yes.
figure it out, right? And I'm like, holy smoke, I can't wait till next week because I can do this again. And then you flip it,
We all do it a little different. I
it's
like
a
to
whole
do-
different sequence.
Yes, I like to do a different sequence every week. I like to do the same sequence for the week because I think that there's value in repetition. Like you said, you're like, by the end of the week, I figured it out.
Yeah.
And then we start with a new one. And so part of it is like consistency and creativity. You want to balance those two things. Like we want to have like some aspects that are consistent about it so that there's progress on the path.
Right.
And also creativity because it's fun, more fun that way.
Right.
And like, honestly, like when I talk about the spiritual path and like having a guru and like seeing all my dark, like if you don't have fun, like that's one thing I loved about Ma. Like she would laugh, she would make us laugh so hard. And if you don't have fun doing this, it's just not sustainable.
Being playful with it
Yeah.
is really, really important.
There's a matter of playfulness for me that's required. And you know, I take it really seriously. I've devoted my life to this, and also like I want to have a good time. I have one life to live. I want to have a good time while I'm doing it.
I mean, I dig it, but you know, I mean, when I look at what you guys are doing, and I got to say, it doesn't matter, guy, gal, whoever, like the instructor up there, they do the pose, and I've said it too. Like I've went through a moment, right? Just doing this over the past few months. I call it I still call it my foo-foo moment, because it's like. There's an instructor there. His name is Greg, and Greg is great. I love taking this class, right? And there was one day Greg did a pose, right? And I'm sitting there because he says, "Let me demonstrate, and then we can get into it." And everybody starts to look, and there are a lot of people at Greg's class too, by the way. Just like Neda's, it's like, oh, it's packed. It's great. All the instructors are great. But I look at his pose, and I go, "That is beautiful." Then I go, "What am I saying?" Right? What do you mean? Like, what is happening to you? Right? So it was that click, but it's. At that very moment, though, I look at the pose and I say, "There's just no way I'll get that." But we do it, and then at the end of the week, I figure it out. But then we bring it back a few weeks later, and I can't do it again. It's another layer.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, it's just like, it's not I can't do it again, but it's just it wasn't as easy. Maybe that's
For
another.
sure.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I'm just trying to figure out, like, those are the layers, I feel, my interpretation, that you go through in life, right? Like, it's just maybe something stuck, or it's just different, or whatever. Like, yeah, I get the basic stuff, and I can get a little further than I would, but it's still challenging.
So here's the thing. Well, there's one word that you just said that's a very important thing in the realm of yoga, in my opinion, and it's basic. That, like, one thing Yoga Hour gave me is before I was doing Yoga Hour, I was just trying to do the most radical thing I could with my body. Like, what weird shape could I turn my body into?
Right.
And pushing my boundaries big time, and I could bend my back a lot. And so I was really just like going down that road of like, how big of a back bend can I do, really? And I started building a lot of imbalance in my body. Like I could bend backwards really well, but I could not fold forward or twist. And so there's that. But Yoga Hour really gave me like a newfound respect for the basics. And that is really what I mean when I say, like, I don't pay attention to the fruit of my work. I just work on the work. It's like I work on basics day in, day out. Like a very basic form. Like one of my aims as a teacher is to take something that is very doable, like a very basic shape, and how can I make this difficult for myself? And not difficult just for the sake of being difficult, but difficult because we're all given these like sophisticated instruments, and nobody teaches us how to use them. Like the body has so much capacity. People can do wild things with their bodies. And so can I start with something very basic and just do that thing really well? I stopped practicing radical asana for a long time. And then what I found is like when I would go to do those things, all of a sudden I could do them. Like all these really crazy things that I've been trying so hard to do and could not do them, working on the basics for months and months and months and months and years, all of a sudden, like when I go to do something really radical, I'm like, oh, I can put my foot not just on my head, but then I can wrap my arm around, like things that I didn't think my body could do before. You know, like it's like, oh, like I was trying to just get my foot to my head, and now my arm is going here. Like
it's crazy.
I wasn't expecting it.
I'm laughing because it really happens, and you go, how is she doing that?
What's really frustrating is my husband barely ever practices anymore. He used to come to Yoga Hour. He will only come to Yoga Hour. He won't come to any other class. But he was a wrestler in high school. So he could just throw his leg behind his head and it's no problem. And it's so frustrating. I'm like, I do this every day.
How do you do
and
that?
You're sitting behind a computer working your IT job and playing video games, and you can still put your leg behind your head.
Like, how do you do that at the end of the day?
Yeah.
But, I mean, so with that being said, the basics.
Yes.
How do you translate that on the mat to anybody? Like, if somebody's out there listening, like, how do you translate what's happening there to just life in general and taking it back to the basics? You know, my coach always says, running coach, when you're going through hell, keep going, but also you got to take it back to the basics, right? But sometimes it's hard to understand that, right? Like, how do you translate that into life? Somebody who's going through it, you know? take it back? How do you?
I mean, for me personally, what I do is like I strive on routine. So like I wake up and I do the same things every morning. I wake up in the morning. One of my dogs is already downstairs because she wakes up at the crack of dawn and we have to put her downstairs so she won't let us sleep. I cuddle with my other dog for a second. I walk downstairs and then I have like this routine of like I do this and then I do this and then I do this and I do this. And even like that is yoga practice for me. Like I'm not meditating. I'm not, doing breath work, but that structure is like setting a basic foundation for my day. And if I do those things, I have a much better day than the morning where I wake up late and I'm in a rush and I forget to like eat my turmeric or whatever. Yeah. I don't have time to make coffee or, whatever's happening. And then the rest of my day is chaos. So like for me, a lot of it is like coming back to basics in that way. I lost a lot of relationships that I needed to lose when I started on this path because like I remember and one of my friends, if she's listening, I hope she thinks this is funny, but I remember like I stopped drinking and doing all kinds of stuff when I first did my training because I really wanted to like devote myself to it fully. And then I would like drink every once in a while. And I remember being out at a bar with her one time. And she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're drinking again. I missed the old Neda."
Right. And
it was like such a wake up call for me. Like I was like, oh, like I actually like myself better now.
Right.
Like I don't like this party thing.
Yeah.
Like I don't like that part of myself as much. And like I still like to go out and have drinks with my friends every once in a while, but it's not like my whole life.
Right.
Like before, like I worked in bars and that's like what I did most of the time. It was like be in the bar because I was working there. And so for a lot of it is like coming back to basics of like I am the company I keep, so I better keep good company. It's a quote from a yoga philosopher named Douglas Brooks. He says, keep good company, for you are the company you keep. So part of it is like coming back to basics of like, who do I want in my life? Who do I want to be around me on a daily basis? Like, what do I want to consume on a daily basis? What like, not just what I'm eating with my food, but like, what am I taking in on a daily basis and how's that affecting me and my relationships? And now, I'm not saying that all I do is sit around and read the Bhagavad Gita and do breath work. I'm like the biggest Game of Thrones nerd on the planet.
I like it. Like, we're gonna do a show actually.
I want to be here. If
we're gonna do
I'm
a game.
Obsessed.
We're gonna do a Game of Thrones show.
Okay, I listened to like 5 Game of Thrones podcasts.
Yeah,
it's out of control.
Yeah. Speaking, actually, not to get off of how do you feel about the fact that it didn't come out this year?
I'm just on the edge of my seat. I did like almost didn't know what to do with myself. I've rewatched it like 18 times.
So, and I'm just gonna put it out there real quick because these guys don't really get into it. I do. So the last episode, Jon Snow.
Are you? Wait. Are you about to drop spoilers?
No,
Okay.
no spoilers. This is actually I'm asking a question. Your opinion. You saw the last season, right?
I did.
Okay, so Jon.
But what if other people haven't?
No,
okay.
everybody's
it's
seen
too late.
it yet.
If you
your
haven't seen it yet, it's happening.
Moment of silence to get off and disconnect right now.
Are you about to talk about what the blog the podcast
listen,
sphere calls?
just listen.
I'm gonna listen.
No,
I'm gonna shut my mouth and listen. Yes. So
Jon Snow, Khaleesi, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is gonna happen? Do you think so? Jon Snow is Khaleesi's what? Let me see if you know.
Nephew.
Okay, so therefore he slept with his aunt.
Yes.
Right. So they're gonna have a kid, guaranteed.
I guess they are.
No, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's like a Targaryen family thing.
Doesn't matter.
Incest is just their thing.
Well, look at
I'm not saying I agree with it.
No. Look at what's her name and her brother.
Cersei.
Yeah,
and
like
Jaime.
that seems to be a thing. But
and they're twins. It's like actually they call that twincest.
Right, but I get it. Like, okay, brother, sister, and then kid, and it's creepy, right?
Yes.
But that's my nephew, and I'm the aunt. So what's the kid gonna be?
A dragon.
Probably.
That's funny.
That's actually a good answer. That's a dragon. So the ice dragon's a problem.
The ice dragon is a fucking
No, it's
problem.
going to be you're good. You're good. Don't worry about it. Go ahead.
I'm going to drag you all back into
yoga. Oh, yoga. He was really zen, and we're like,
I got
where'd
so
you go?
excited about this Game of Thrones situation. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is like bringing it back down to basics is like for me off the mat is like making good choices and like how do I want to frame my life,
Right.
It's like taking care of my space and like setting up practices for myself. So I'm like, even if I can't for the day, like it's a really crazy day, I don't have time to spend an hour doing all my various ritualistic practices, like can I just like take a moment at my puja or altar or whatever and just like have a moment of gratitude, just have a moment of acknowledging like I'm so blessed, like so much has happened in my life. and what I have in my, I have so much to be grateful for. And if you had asked me at any point in my life before now if this is what my life was going to be like, I would have thought you were crazy. And so if I could even just take like a moment just to like not get wrapped up in all the crazy and all the things I have to do and just like get back to simple, like just say thank you to the universe that this is what my life looks like now.
Yoga,
yes,
as it is science to it?
Yeah, I think there's a huge science to it. I think it's an art and a science. There's a balance.
Do you think that the fad of the science is bad for it? Meaning that it has become, obviously, it's $1 billion industry,
sure.
right? The Lulus, the mats, all that stuff. But people, the doctors will come in and say, if you do yoga, you could lower your this and that, and then, your blood pressure and blood sugar and this, that, and the other. Do you think that's a good? I mean, it's great rap for it, I'm sure. But do you think people lose a sense of what yoga is?
I try not to get wrapped up in that too much about like what yoga is, because I think it's different for every person. And I mean, that's why there's so many different studios. Like some of the people who come to Tough Love, they don't like it. Like they're not into the way that we offer. And that's totally fine, because there's a million other yoga studios and yoga teachers. And the idea for me is like there's a different practice for everybody. Like there's going to be a teacher that like somebody might come to my class and hate it and then go to Greg's and love it, right? So like the idea of like we have such a diverse planet. There's so many different kinds of people and people with different aims. And so there should be different kinds of practice. And I think that like there are going to be people like my husband who like he is going to go after the science. If I can tell him like there's a scientific study that says if you do this, this is the result, then he's much more likely to come than I'm like, come to yoga and you'll like be in your heart and like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't think it's a problem at all. And like, I just try not to get wrapped up in it. Like I know what I'm doing. I always remind my like thing that I say to myself on a daily basis is like, just keep your head down and do your work. Like no matter what anybody else is doing, they can do whatever they want to do. It doesn't matter like how many classes someone teaches or how many people are in their class or how many studios they own or what type of yoga they're teaching or how they're presenting the practice. If they're saying like yoga is this and it's only this, like, okay, well, that's your opinion. And it's also none of my business. Like I know what it is for me. I know in the way that it resonates for me in a way I want to offer. And that's what I do. And I think that honestly, like the science piece of it is great. I mean, just for the physical practice part, I mean, one of the things, I know, Tough Love, have you been to any other studios?
No.
Okay, so our particular focus is alignment-based yoga. So that's why we're asking you to move your kneecap like this and do this thing with your elbow. And for me, it's very science-based, that. I mean, it's very much based on biomechanics and the way the body is built and structure. And, my aim, one of my aims that I'm teaching is to make this practice sustainable. Like I want to be able to do this when I'm 95 years old.
Sure.
And if I want to do that when I'm 95 years old, then I got to take care of this body. And if I'm just forcing it into shapes, that's not going to happen. It's going to wear down. And I'm much more likely to be able to do this in a sustainable way when and I know it's not everybody's approach, and I'm definitely not saying it's the only way. But for me, alignment-based yoga, that's one of the reasons, is that like I know that like I've studied anatomy. I wanted to be a doctor, I understand I don't understand the body like a doctor by any means, but I understand the body way more than like a typical human probably walking around that's going to walk into practice. And so my idea is like, can I use that science to enhance my offering so that I can offer a more sustainable practice, so that I'm never going to be able to eliminate risk. I mean, I'm clumsy. I run into stuff all the time. Like I'm much more likely to hurt myself walking out of my house than I am in a yoga pose personally. But can I minimize the risk? Yeah. Can I like give people access into their bodies in a different way and like understanding of how to use this? Which in the Iyengar system they say like you come to yoga class for the first time. This is one of my teachers told me this. You come to yoga class for the first time. You're like, okay, I've got arms and legs. And then, like, you come to another class and you're like, okay, there's like an upper part of my leg and a lower part of my leg. And then eventually you're like, there's this tiny piece of skin right here on my arm and I can move it just like that, right? So it's like, Mr. Iyengar would basically say it's like you come into yoga, broken and become whole in your heart, right? Like that. It's like that, like your insides. It's like you might come in broken and become whole through the practice, and your body, your understanding of your body is like whole, and over time that breaks down. Like your understanding of your body breaks down. It's like those two things kind of work together. Is that like I came into this practice like understanding that I had a body, and was very much disconnecting from it all the time because it was painful to be in it. I was anxious, I was depressed, I was an angsty teenager. I didn't know what to do with all of that. And coming into a practice that taught me how to like embrace my body and channel all of that into something productive, that's the best gift I've ever been given.
That's dope. To see, so for us to actually see how much she knows, we're gonna play a little game, right, on yoga.
I'm gonna let you choose the poses.
No, not the poses. We got questions for you, girl.
Oh, we got questions.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
let's play
girl,
a game.
What are you talking about, man? We're
Let's
about to
play a
quiz you.
game.
All right. So if you're right, obviously, if you're right, you're gonna hear this right here. If you are right, you hear the ding, ding, ding. Right. So you hear.
All right.
If you're right, and if you're wrong, you get the sorry, but you're wrong, and you get this. Right? Okay. So. The guru. Well, I'm not. You're not guru. You're a king cobra. Sorry, my bad. Gerard, you want to start? Question number 1.
Sure.
No, number 2.
No,
She already answered.
no. Let's just give her. We'll give her number 1 because she actually said it, and I was a little
she
bit
did.
bummed, but
Oh,
she knows this. Yeah.
no.
So just ask the first question, and you can go to number 2.
The word yoga is derived from the Sanskrit word that means
She said it would be good. Go ahead. A. Meditation.
A. Meditation, B. Union, C. Twist.
I'll go with union. B.
All right. Cool. Gerard, since she got that one, you go for number 2 as well.
Ujjayi. Am I saying that correctly?
Ujjayi?
Ujjayi. Sorry.
Butcher.
Ujjayi is a type of what? A. Lunge. B. Breath. C. Guru.
B. Breath. It means the victorious uprising.
Okay.
She's killing it right now. All right, Gazelle.
I wouldn't give you the choices.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just ask
Yeah.
you
Good
You're
job.
gonna make
Yes.
it more
Yes.
difficult
Yes.
for me. Okay,
It's
we're
probably
up
gonna be
we're
nothing.
up in the ante.
How many poses make up the sun salutation?
Oh, which sun salutation? This is a trick question. A, B, or C?
What do you mean? Which one? There's more than one.
There's more than one.
Is there like a generic one?
There's an A, B, and C. Okay, so A, I have to count them because I don't know
Okay.
off the top of my head.
Okay.
So A, mountain pose, Urdhva Hastasana. Okay, I'm going to assume you're meaning sun salutation B.
Okay. How much is that? How many is that? How many is that?
Sun salutation B. All right, so this is really hard because there's like, are you talking about all like the whole thing start to finish? I can name the poses.
Give
Would that
me
be
a number.
helpful?
No, don't name them. Just give me a number.
Give you a number?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. I'm gonna have to count. It's gonna take forever. Okay. Tadasana. Utkatasana. Forward fold. Half lift.
Would you like to phone a friend?
Yes. Would you like 50-50?
Up dog. Down dog. Warrior 1. Chaturanga. Up dog. Down dog. Warrior 1. Chaturanga. Up down. Down dog. Half lift. Forward fold. Utkatasana. Mountain pose. 19.
12.
12. Okay, I counted all of the little poses in between.
Yeah,
so I'm
it
like,
was
I
12.
don't know.
All right,
okay,
we'll give
12.
you half. All right, cool. Here's,
I lost that one.
all right, here's one.
All right.
All right, this is going to be a little bit different of a question.
Okay.
All right? This is called what's the yoga expression, right? What yoga expression would be used if someone asked you a really hard question?
I don't understand the question.
Think of yoga expressions.
Okay.
And if somebody asked you a really hard question, how would you use some form of yoga expression to answer that? You don't know the answer. That's a hint.
Honestly, the best.
No. If they asked you a really hard question, you didn't know the answer, is what I'm saying.
I would say I don't know.
No, you'd
No.
go, That's what you
That
do.
was good.
All right,
I
so
love
so
it.
you get that one. All right, here's another yoga expression.
All right.
All right. What yoga expression would you use? I think you know this one because I think I might have mentioned it to you. Would you use if your friends called you up and asked you if you wanted to go out tonight, but you really wanted to?
Namaste at home in my pajamas with this dog in my lap.
Hey, you know what's funny? My daughter actually my daughter actually did the answer to that question and went a little something like this.
Namaste, namaste, like it's green. Thank you, yoga friends. Thank you, yoga friends. Namaste.
That is so cute.
She did that today. She did that today while we were downstairs because I was like, this is creepy because we had just done the questions and I went downstairs and I was with my wife Sarah and we were outside playing with her and she started singing that. I was like, I need to get that on recording.
Does she take yoga at school?
She does.
That's
She
awesome.
does. Actually, when we went to funny story. For everybody, when we went to pick out my yoga mat, because Greg invited me to come down because he works at Lululemon. My daughter wanted to pick out her yoga mat too, so we picked her out a yoga mat as well as mine. So it was actually very, very cool. All right, so I got one last question before we wrap up, right? And I normally ask everybody this question before they leave. The purpose of starting this station was to basically start a community where we can all talk, meet each other, find out about each other, what each other does. I always said everybody in this neighborhood and outside, they just have really great stories, and they're really gnarly people, right? With what you do and your teachings, what do you think we could do as a community incorporating yoga to just be better people, better as a community, and better as a whole, as a world? Like, well, what would be your ideal with what you found, your new, I'd still call it your newfound love?
Yeah, I would say, I have two answers for that. And the first one would be just practice. Like, I am a better human when I'm practicing. I know myself better. I'm kinder to myself and other people. And I feel like if everybody could find whatever practice that is that offers them that, I think that little by little the world would get better. Then there's always bigger things that you could do, like, one of the classes that you come to every week is YoGive. And YoGive, every single dollar that comes to the studio for that goes to supporting programs that offer yoga meditation services to people who experience homelessness. So it's like you can leverage your practice for good in those kinds of ways too. Like, we do benefits at the studio all the time for whatever cause is happening, like when hurricanes hit and when Charlottesville happened, like all of those things, like we offer opportunities for people, one, to have a space to come to like process what they're feeling, that like things are crazy right now and everybody's having a really hard time dealing with it. And so part of it for me is like creating a space, holding a space where people can come and like just have somewhere to be with other people and feel that, because I think I think just like going to a class is enough, because the way our world is right now, it's like people interact mostly on social media, and that's just not real.
Yeah.
Like, it's not real.
Yeah.
Like, how many people like your photo on Instagram doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't. And in the grand scheme of things, like, maybe it matters to somebody, but like, it just doesn't matter to me, and it doesn't help me form connection with people. Actually, I think it does the opposite.
Sure.
And so part of it for me is like, just go be with people. Like, go be in a room with people that you wouldn't interact with on a regular basis. Like, I meet people all the time that if I was just doing my own thing, I wouldn't be in a room talking about the things that we're talking about with other people. So I think part of it is just like creating a space, holding a space for people to come and feel what they're going to feel, and like let that be okay. Like, let it be okay that like you don't feel good right now, and like give them tools to process it as part of it. And then we try to create opportunities where people can do that, and also we use that money to do something good to support other people. I think if there were more opportunities like that, it would be great.
Where can people find you?
toughloveyoga.com.
What's the location? I don't know the address.
We're in Candler Park, right by the Candler Park MARTA station, so you can ride MARTA to the studio. We also have a lot of parking, but it's 1530 DeKalb Ave, Suite D.
You guys still doing if you ride your bike?
Yeah, if you ride your bike, you walk to the studio, you run. If you come any way except for with a gas-powered vehicle, then we'll let you borrow a mat for free.
That's cool.
And, our aim is affordability. So we started April 2010. Our classes were $10 a drop in, and, 8 years and change later, we're still $10 a drop in. And then for people who can't afford $10, then we do work trade programs, and we'll be like, all right, cool. Can you come, sweep the floor one day a week?
Do you know people that would that want to take it and can't? Do you know anybody?
I know people. Yeah, I
know
all kinds of people.
Or people that
I know people who would want to come more often. I always try to work with them though. I never want money to be an obstacle for people to have practice. So I always try to work with people. If somebody comes to me and says, I want to come, I can't afford it, then I always try to give like 19 different ideas of like, can you do this? Can we do this?
Yeah, that's
what if
cool.
you just come up? And then like, you know, there's always times where we've been like, okay, just come.
Yeah.
You know, we try to work it out with people. And also like, the real thing of it is like, we have to pay rent.
Yeah.
You know, like we have to pay rent. We have teachers who devote their lives to taking care of people, and yoga teachers really don't make money either. So that's a hard thing too. So like we still have to charge for classes, and if it's ever an obstacle, finances, we always work with people.
That's cool. I
Yeah.
love that. Well, we got to close out our interview.
right.
So you know how we close it out? Are you going to do it?
Sure.
All right, we're going to close out the interview real quick, guys. Here we go.
Okay. Please place your palms together. Rest your thumbs against your sternum. With an inhale, lift your chest, please. And with an exhale, surrender the weight of your pelvis down. Close your eyes. And we'll end the same way we began, with the sound of Om one time. Om is the sound of consciousness. It's also optional, so join in or join in by listening. I'll start. You join in. Inhale fully, please. As a way of honoring yourself, each other, this path and practice, and everyone who's walked the path ahead of us. Namaste.
Namaste. That was cool. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you
in.
so much
and
for
hopefully we'll
having
have you
me.
back. Maybe we need to get some of the instructors here.
I think we should bring
yeah,
the crew.
Yeah,
next
we should
time.
bring the crew next time, and we
All
can
right.
have like a good old party. Guys, this was great. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Gazelle, thank you. Gerard, Gazelle's like, he's like looking at he's like, Falcons are playing tonight. I gotta
He's
go.
just happy I didn't make him do a yoga pose.
No, I know that, and he's like, his boys are playing. Are you a football gal?
No.
Oh, Falcons are playing tonight. So
You mean foosball?
foosball, yeah, exactly. Foosball.
Foosball.
Yeah, exactly. Falcons are playing tonight. So guys, on Wednesday we have Kitty Rose and the Rattlers. They're going to be here. They're a local Decatur band. They do some rockabilly, and they're actually going to be doing a little unplugged concert in here. Yeah, it's
That's
gonna be
great.
really, really fun. So I'm looking forward to it. Gerard,
Yes, sir.
get ready for your downward or upward dog. And until next time, guys, we will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for listening to Decatur FM. Bye.
At Decatur FM,